surprise. But with a surgery like this, there's possibility of blood supply.
You shouldn't have never said it.
Well, you shouldn't hurt my feelings.
She is toxic. And you're her girlfriend. You know what I'm talking about.
Oh my God. How's the family?
Falling apart.
Girl.
Amy's done blocked me. I haven't heard from Amy since our text fight. She's blocked me on everything. This is the first time Amy's ever blocked me. But she's not hurting nobody but herself.
I was going to have Tammy at my cake testing, but she don't want nothing to do with me, so her. Like, I'm done trying. I threw out all my olive branches. I ain't got no more on the tree.
1,000 Pound Sister, Season 8. Episode 2, inside Amy Slaton's wedding turmoil, family fallout, and the emotional divide, threatening to tear the Slaton sisters apart. In what insiders are calling one of the most emotionally charged chapters in the history of 1,000 Pound Sister, Season 8, Episode 2 unfolds less like reality television and more like a slow-motion family fracture playing out under the glare of cameras. What should have been a joyful period. A wedding on the horizon, fresh beginnings, personal growth. Instead, exposes deep insecurities, unresolved resentment, and an emotional divide that no amount of sibling history seems able to bridge. At the center of the storm stands Amy Slaton, whose wedding planning has become the unexpected battleground where old wounds resurface and new tensions ignite. Sources close to the production describe the atmosphere during filming as emotionally heavy, with conversations repeatedly derailing into tears, defensiveness, and frustration before solutions could even be discussed. Viewers witness this almost immediately. Before Chris and Misty even sit down to speak, Amy is already crying, already braced for conflict, already assuming criticism is coming. According to one production insider, this pattern became a defining emotional rhythm of the episode, Amy anticipating attack, and the family scrambling to calm a fire that hasn't even been lit yet. Family dynamics experts often refer to this response as emotional pre-defense, when someone prepares for hurt before any harm occurs. In Amy's case, it manifests as immediate distress, raised emotional intensity, and difficulty engaging in direct dialogue. Chris and Misty's goal appears simple: prevent further deterioration between Amy and Tammy before the wedding. But the conversation never gets the chance to stay practical. Emotions surge, voices tighten, and the focus shifts from resolution to damage control. Chris, often positioned as the family's stabilizing force, is seen carefully choosing words, softening his tone, and slowing the pace of conversation to keep things from escalating. At one point, he openly acknowledges the difficulty of navigating these talks, implying he must simplify and soften communication just to keep Amy from feeling overwhelmed. It's not mockery. It's fatigue layered with concern. Repeated emotional shutdowns have created a situation where even small discussions feel like walking through a minefield. Meanwhile, Tammy Slaton's storyline offers a striking contrast. Once viewed as the sibling struggling most publicly, Tammy now represents quiet forward momentum. She is living with her partner, adjusting to shared responsibility, and beginning volunteer work at an animal shelter. A development insiders describe as deeply meaningful for her sense of purpose. Rather than dramatic declarations, Tammy's growth shows in routine, consistency, and independence. It's subtle, but significant, and it shifts the long-standing balance between the sisters in a way that may be contributing to the tension. For years, Amy was seen as the more stable sister, the caretaker in some respects, the one perceived to be moving ahead. Now, with Tammy stepping into a healthier chapter, that identity dynamic has changed. Psychologists often note that shifts in family roles can destabilize relationships, especially when self-worth is tied to comparison. Those close to the show say Amy appears to be struggling with that shift, though she rarely frames it that way. Instead, she describes feeling unsupported, criticized, and targeted. Amy openly claims Tammy sabotages her happiness, criticizing her appearance, her choices, and her decisions. However, Chris gently challenges the idea that fault lies entirely on one side, reminding her that conflict between siblings is rarely one-directional. This moment stands out because it introduces the concept of shared responsibility, something that has been largely absent from Amy's perspective throughout the episode. The most emotionally explosive development comes when Amy makes a wedding decision that sends shockwaves through the family, choosing a newer friend, Liye, as her maid of honor instead of any of her 4 sisters. Insiders say this decision was known before filming, but became far more charged once discussed on camera. For Amy, it represents emotional loyalty. She believes Liye shows up for her without judgment. For her sisters, it feels like erasure. Years of shared hardship, childhood survival, health battles, and public scrutiny suddenly feel dismissed in favor of a sibling who delivers firm accountability without judgment. That balance of encouragement and honesty has reportedly helped Tammy stay grounded during difficult phases. Without that constant reinforcement, insiders say she's having to rely more on internal discipline and other support systems. This isn't described as conflict. It's described as an adjustment period. And adjustment, in a family that has always relied on strong personalities, can feel uncomfortable before it feels stable. Amy under pressure. Without the usual buffer, Amy Slaton's emotional landscape has shifted significantly in recent seasons, with personal life changes adding layers of stress. Historically, Chris has served as a calming presence when Amy became overwhelmed during family disagreements. According to sources close to the situation, Amy has felt the change. Chris is the one who diffuses things, an individual familiar with the family dynamic shared. When he's quieter or less involved, situations can feel heavier. Amy's personality has always been expressive, emotional, and reactive, traits that make for compelling television but can be exhausting in real life. Insiders suggest she's been trying to be more mindful of how much she leans on Chris, especially knowing he is focusing on his own balance. But habits built over years don't shift overnight. That's creating what one source described as a learning curve for everyone. The family dynamic without its mediator. For years, the Slaton-Combs sibling group has functioned like a wheel, and Chris has often been the center point keeping it steady. When Tammy and Amy clashed, he stepped in. When discussions turned emotional, he redirected. When motivation dipped, he pushed. Without that consistent mediation, sources say conversations have felt more direct, sometimes more tense, but also more revealing. There's less filtering, an insider noted. People are saying exactly what they feel instead of waiting for Chris to translate it. That could lead to a more raw Season 8 tone, one that feels less structured and more emotionally exposed. Production quietly adjusting its approach. Behind the camera, the shift hasn't gone unnoticed. While TLC has not issued official commentary, people familiar with reality production say when a key personality's capacity changes, filming strategies often change too. Sources suggest production has been allowing more flexible filming schedules, reducing emotionally intense setups when possible, focusing more on individual storylines rather than group confrontations, being mindful of cast well-being during high-stress scenes. This doesn't mean drama disappears, but it may be handled differently. Shows evolve, one production-adjacent source explained. If someone needs breathing room, the structure adapts. The emotional weight of public life. Another factor insiders point to is the constant public attention surrounding 1,000-pound sister. Social media commentary, fan opinions, and online speculation can amplify pressure, especially for someone seen as the strong one. Chris has generally maintained a steady, private demeanor, but being perceived as the reliable problem solver can quietly create expectations that are difficult to live up to. There's an image people have of him, a source said, always calm, always solid. That can feel like a role you can't step out of. Choosing to prioritize well-being may be less about stepping away from the show, and more about stepping away from that expectation. A family learning new emotional boundaries. Perhaps the most significant change described by those close to the situation is the introduction of boundaries. Something not historically associated with this family's very open, emotionally entangled dynamic. Chris reportedly being more selective with emotional involvement is prompting others to take more responsibility for their own regulation. That can feel unfamiliar. It can feel uncomfortable, but it can also be growth. Sometimes support means not fixing everything, an insider reflected. Fans are noticing the tone shift. Longtime viewers of 1,000-Pound Sister are known for picking up subtle emotional changes, and some have already commented that Season 8 feels different. Less comedic relief, more serious conversations, more reflective moments. This doesn't necessarily signal negativity. It signals maturity in the show's narrative. The focus appears to be expanding beyond physical transformation into emotional sustainability, and Chris's situation may be a catalyst for that shift. Not a crisis, a turning point. Sources consistently emphasize that this period is not being described as a breakdown or dramatic fallout. Instead, it's characterized as a turning point where long-term well-being is being prioritized over constant output. That distinction matters. Reality television often highlights extremes, but this situation appears rooted in balance, pacing, and sustainability. Chris, insiders say, remains connected to his family and proud of the journey he has been part of. The change is about how he participates, not whether he cares. Why season the 8th of May feel more real than ever? Without a single central mediator smoothing every moment, viewers may see more authentic emotional processing from each family member. That can be uncomfortable. It can be messy. But it can also be honest. And honesty has always been the core appeal of 1,000-Pound Sister. A turning point for Chris Combs. And possibly the future of the series itself. If parts 1 and 2 revealed the personal and family impact of Chris Combs reassessing his role, part 3 looks at the bigger picture, what this moment could mean for his long-term future on 1,000-Pound Sister, and for the direction of the show that helped make him a fan favorite. Because sometimes the most important shifts don't come with dramatic exits. They come quietly, through reevaluation. And that's exactly how sources describe what's happening now. Not goodbye, but not the same either. Individuals familiar with the situation emphasize that Chris's connection to the series and his family's journey hasn't disappeared. Instead, it appears to be evolving. He hasn't closed a door, one insider shared. He's just changing how wide it's open. That could mean fewer high-stress filming days, more selective involvement in emotionally intense family situations, a focus on personal milestones rather than mediating others' conflicts. This type of adjustment is rare in early reality television formats, which often demanded constant access. But as the genre matures, so does the understanding that sustainability matters. Chris's reported shift could represent a more modern approach, participation without personal depletion. Redefining strength in the public eye. For years, Chris has symbolized toughness. The brother who pushes through, shows up, and keeps moving forward. But insiders suggest this new phase is showing a different kind of strength.